It's changed. Yeah, sorry about that. That was maybe that's really quiet. I don't know. Maybe this is better. Maybe that's too loud. Ooh. Don't know. Sorry. Tell me where it is, where it lands. I don't know what's going on with the sound thing. It wasn't showing me the right. Whatever. Is this loud enough? Is it too loud? Too quiet? Tell me. Seems okay. Thanks, Essa. It's okay. And then Marco, hello. Hello, Marco. Volume is extremely low. It should be okay. I'm checking it. Sorry, that's why I'm being really. I don't know what the word is, but it's sort of feeding back to me right now, and it seems okay. If it's bad for you, make sure that you've got your volume up. If you're at the max of all of the volume things that you've got, I can push it up a little bit more, but I don't want to like deafen everybody. Let's get on with something though. Let's say hello team, the usual. Hello team, how are you? Cool, thanks Marco for confirming that. I'll leave it as it is. Yes, how are you? What have you been up to? What have you enjoyed? What have you not enjoyed this week? You know, the usual. Nobody answers. That's not true. You have answered in the past. But if you've been up to anything really fun you want to share with the group, please do. That would be nice. If there's anything you want to chat about specifically, can be completely unrelated, that's fine. We can talk about things. But I'm not going to talk, I promise, I'm not going to talk about random things. We're here for one thing today, and that's what we're going to stick to. We're going to jump right in. I was hoping to have done more on this in between times, but I just haven't had a chance. And I've been working on so many different things that I've got a million tabs and windows and everything open. We'll talk about the NativePHP Tauri stuff in a second, but yeah, I've just got too many things open, as always. And now I'm sort of suffering for that because I don't know where anything is. I rebooted my laptop in the middle of all of this stuff, and now there's just a bunch of white Chrome windows that are on that memory freeze thing that just doesn't show you what they are. So I don't know what they are. I've got to wait for them all to load back up because it's not giving me any kind of preview, which is really useless. And so I have to go through them all, and then I'm like, oh no, I don't need that. I can close that. I can close that. I can close that, which is just sad. I've got so many tabs open about Tauri. I don't even know where to begin with all of this. Just like quit as many apps as I can quit, and we can get rid of that one as well, and close as many windows and tabs as I can close, and then just move to this and get started. Hopefully. Yeah, it's a bit of a delay, but yeah, it's there now. Cool. Hi. I'm in a different bubble this time. So I decided to get rid of the little spacesuit thing. I've got enough spacesuit stuff going on. So you'll see a slightly bigger version of me, but then maybe I don't know. It takes up less space overall. So maybe you don't want me at all. Maybe I should just go pow and then whoop, come back. But we'll see. You tell me if you want me to get out of the way. Okay, so nobody said anything yet about what you've been working on. Oh, that's okay. I'll let you off. Let's talk about the one thing that I did do this week on NativePHP that was really necessary. It's a different point to where we kind of got to last week. So I didn't really pick up exactly from where we left off. That's what we're going to do today. But there's this other side to the problem that I want to talk about just for a moment. And I'm not going to take too long, and we're going to get on with something. So we've started to look at how Rust can call into PHP and get like an answer from PHP and then do some work, right? And mainly at the moment that is just it gets some HTML and then it dumps that out to the browser, the web view. So that's cool. We've got a lot of work to do on that and refining that. But the kind of the other bit, the flip side of that is not Rust to PHP, but PHP to Rust. And that's what I spent a couple of hours, I think it was in the end. Maybe it wasn't that long. With somebody in the community who's been doing a lot of this stuff as well, called Austin. Austin's a really nice guy. I've been following him for a while and watching his streams, and he's been putting messages out about this kind of stuff in the past, and we're kind of on the same path, so we got in touch and we've started to collaborate, which is really cool because he's a very knowledgeable guy about this stuff as well, and he's fun. He's a fun conversation. You should follow his stream too. He streams on Twitch. I don't know if he's been streaming much over the last couple of weeks because he hasn't been very well, but hopefully he'll be doing more of that. And we got our heads together earlier in the week and had a crack at trying to figure out how we might do this other side of the problem, right? How do we get PHP to speak to Rust? Turns out that's quite a tricky one, and there's a lot of unknowns because I think neither of us are particularly au fait with creating desktop applications, and the difference in the sort of headspace and the way that you're thinking about how things are being done is kind of alien to us. It certainly is to me, and I'm sort of figuring all of that out. And so the way I sort of approached figuring that out was, well, how does Tauri actually do it under the hood? And I still don't know, honestly. It's still a bit of a mystery. But there's some bits within the Tauri code base that kind of hint at how it's working. This window that I've got open here is kind of one of them. It's just a piece of the puzzle. It's not the answer. This is just the formatter for some JSON. But that slots into some part of how this whole thing works. I'm not going to go through it in detail with you because it's not the right forum for that. But the short answer is basically Tauri is broken up into a bunch of packages, and I'll try and find the one that is the one that makes most sense. Okay, here it is. Not each package. This one is called Rye. So there's one called Tau, and there's one called Rye, and I think that's kind of, some funny naming game that they're playing, which is fun. But yes, the Rye package is the one that kind of builds the web views, and because of the way that Tauri works, you have it's having to use the platform specific web view, right? So it's dependent upon like drivers for that specific platform, and then there's some logic in here that kind of works out which platform I'm on, so which driver have I got to use. And you can see like there's this mention of Android here, there's this WebKit GTK, which some of you might recognize as being a kind of more Linux thing. There's WebView 2, what is that? Who knows? And there's WK WebView, and WK WebView is like the Safari one's WebKit WebView. And yeah, so that leaves WebView 2 as being like the Chrome E driver, and you know Chrome is like the most, it's not Chrome, is it? I can't remember, Blink or Chrome, there's some underlying thing that is effectively what every other browser uses. So, and by every other browser I mean, you know, like Edge, and what was the one that was an O that nobody remembers anymore? An Arc, and a bunch of other ones. They're all basically just Chrome under the hood. So WebView 2 is the web view that uses. Which again, I think is actually WebKit somewhere. So, or it started life as WebKit. Anyway, every single one of these implements this kind of post message function. So this one's the Chrome one, and it's window.chrome.webview.postMessage. And somehow, I don't know exactly what that does, but somehow that makes something available in like a memory slot somewhere, or it pipes something to another process, you know, and the process that it speaks to is your Rust application. So when your Rust code has been compiled down to an application, when this JavaScript runs, because this is JavaScript, even though we're looking at a Rust file, it basically sends a message using some underlying message passing technology between the JavaScript environment of the web view into the Rust process, which is probably like the parent process of the web view in some way. So you imagine like the JavaScript environment is a process of its own. I don't know if this is technically how it's working, but it's kind of maybe even a thread rather than a process, but it's running alongside the main application, because JavaScript in the web view needs to operate on its own timing and have its own memory and all of this kind of stuff. And then when it needs to say something to Rust, it's going to use this post message function, which looks kind of similar to the typical JavaScript post message that you do use between JavaScript threads and Windows and things, but it's different. It's like the more lower level, this is between two native applications or kind of two processes or whatever. Again, I don't understand all of this. I'm just going, you know, there's a lot of assumptions and things. I would happily be corrected. But what that takes is like a JSON packet, and then somewhere deep within Tauri, it kind of goes, this is the message that I'm receiving from the web view. And it's a JSON packet, so I'm going to decode the JSON, not decode, but it uses SERD, which is the serializer deserialize. So it's deserializing the JSON, and then it's turning it into whatever it's supposed to be doing. And in Tauri, that's mostly commands. So you have this thing in JavaScript called invoke. The invoke function is what allows you to call your Rust commands. So I'll show you an example of what one of those looks like, because this is the principle, I guess, of what we're trying to achieve. Main. This is a command. It's a simple function. And then when I want to call that function from the JavaScript side, I can just say invoke, and it will, because it's been I'll say labeled by this attribute as a Tauri command, and it's been registered here as sort of invoke handler. It's got an invoke handler. I don't know what this means. Like, this is basically saying generate the handler for this function. So these two parts kind of work together to say this is one of the functions that can be called from like the front end, whatever that is, but it happens to be JavaScript. And then in the JavaScript, we can use invoke to call this function and even pass parameters and stuff. The documentation for that's all somewhere in here. It's not this one. Wow, where is it? I really dislike this memory saver thing, Chrome. It's not helpful. It's this one. So yeah, you can call Rust from the front end, passing arguments, blah de blah de blah. Cool. It's good. It's really, really powerful feature of Tauri, and you know, kind of what you'd expect it to be able to do. And what I'm trying to do, or what we're trying to do, Austin and I were looking at, is like, how can we do the same thing as that, so it keeps this really common API that maybe Tauri devs are used to, or certainly people coming to Tauri can kind of read this documentation and go, oh, okay, in JavaScript I invoke, you know, I run this invoke command, or this function, and then it runs my command in the Rust world, if that's what I need to do. Like, so if you were getting deep and down with Tauri, then this might be something that you would do. But the more fundamental piece is, if we can do that from the PHP side, then you almost wouldn't need to think about this, because there'd be some API in NativePHP that would just say, like, you can invoke something. You don't even need to think of it as invoking some Rust script, although it could do that, some custom Rust script. It would literally be used by NativePHP to do all of the basic NativePHP things that we're trying to do, like positioning windows and tracking the mouse cursor position and sending notifications, all of those like lovely native things that you can do with an application. And just being able to write PHP code that does that. So that's the dream, but getting there is quite tricky. I'll show it in practice because I think it's good to see. I can't remember where we exactly got to last week, honestly. I can't even believe it's been a week since I was last doing most of this. It's just gone by so quickly. Anyway. So watch the terminal. Oh, why has that gone over there? I don't know. But I'll show you kind of a working example of how this will happen, if it will let me. Was it custom command? I can't remember what I called it. Yeah, so just to be clear, what I'd expect to see in the terminal because of this is I was invoked from PHP. We're not invoking it from PHP, but that's, again, the dream scenario is that this is what will be possible. So, but I'm doing it from JavaScript and I'm just doing it from the thing. Let's get the terminal up so we can see it happen. Hit return, and it failed because it didn't have invoke. Wow, that's sad, isn't it? See it? Let's use that one. That will be available. Yeah, okay. And you can see that was almost instantaneous. So this is just, the reason that didn't work is just because something is broken here and it didn't have access to that JavaScript. But that's by the by. So the point is, it's entirely possible for the web view to speak to Rust. And those things are kind of on separate planes of existence, really, as far as I understand things. So there's some way that it's doing that. And what I want to do is figure out what that way is and do it from PHP, because it feels like once we understand that, then we can unlock that PHP to Rust piece, which is the thing that I said I wasn't going to talk too long about, but I have. So we can get back to the other side, because there's still a lot of stuff going on the other side, which we're not going on, which is what we need to fix. So where do we begin? Well, quick summary. So you can see this here is rendering this some HTML, and it says hello from Laravel, but what the heck does that mean? Who knows? It is coming from this counter, which is a livewire component, and it's being rendered by this counter.blade, and that's not going to be useful to anybody because that just doesn't work. So this, we can change stuff here, and we can reboot this application and it will show us, but things aren't working right now, even though they should, because of the way that this is being handled, and we'll dive into that again just really quickly. The plugin that we've created is what does this work for us. That doesn't exist here. It's nice and easy to add, but it doesn't exist there. It exists over here, and what this does, at the moment it's a bit of a mess because we've just thrown it together quite rapidly, but what this is doing is calling a command, right, that uses PHP. So it's using this PHP sidecar, which is a feature of Tauri, and it's calling the artisan, and we've set up this special command called NativeRequest that takes a request method and a request URI and returns some output from the standard out, and then cleans it up, basically. Like, it's a bit more specific than that, but cleans it up and then sends it back to the web view. So that's the basics of it functioning, but it doesn't function. And you can see the errors that are going on over here. There's a bunch of things that aren't quite right, and we'll look at why that's wrong, and we're going to try and fix that up. So let's start here. Actually, we'll see it straight away. So just working through this is effectively what we've bumped into. It's got this weird sort of syntax here in the hrefs, and we need to figure out where that's coming from. Is that happening in the web view, or is it happening in the HTML that's being rendered? So we'll dig into it and then figure it out. And this is what's causing these problems, because this just isn't right. This isn't a good syntax for this thing. And the reason why that's happening is because we've actually got some strangeness here. What this is, in order to make this work, so when we send a request in the web view, if we want it to run against PHP, we have to make it use this special protocol that we've created called PHP. So the PHP protocol, and then going to a URL on that, is what runs our sidecar and gets back the HTML response. This is obviously not HTTP or HTTPS, and my theory is that when we get to rendering, Laravel doesn't really know what to do with this funny protocol, this PHP : / instead of HTTP or HTTPS. So it's doing its default, and it's stripping some stuff, and it's mangling it. And if we fix that, we might be on the path to some sort of victory. But before we dive right in and just doing that, I want to think about, like, I'm already conscious of some of the problems with that. One is some of the requests are for static assets. So like compiled JavaScript, compiled CSS, images, and those kinds of things. For those assets, we probably don't need to go through our PHP protocol. We probably do just want to use HTTP, or some other thing. But we basically want to tell Tauri to load those directly because it can. So there is a special handler for that already built into Tauri, and I'm just going to throw it in here. We can do Tauri and then, some again. So it's got its own kind of protocol. And this is really just for static assets. So we could have I'm just using an example. Let's assume that was available in the public root of our project. This piece here is what would instruct Tauri to go and load that file from the relevant location. And the good thing is we have all of those things in the right place because we've copied them there. Whatever's here we can do. These built assets, these are the exact ones that it's looking for, so we could get those. It's then just figuring out on the Laravel side which ones need to be Tauri asset things and which ones need to be, I don't know if this is exactly right, by the way, but assuming that it's something like this, which of the URLs that we're generating need to be asset ones and which ones need to be PHP ones. And the reason for doing that is so that we don't have all of our requests just piping through PHP, which would be completely unnecessary. I think for an efficiency's sake. And there's all sorts of other gotchas that could come up from that. I just really want to be clear about the stuff that needs PHP is what calls PHP. The stuff that doesn't need PHP doesn't call for PHP. And it's the same principle as you would do with maybe Nginx or some other web server where, for static assets, you don't go to the front controller of your PHP application to try and find the asset and load it through that. That would just be a complete waste of resources because it's unnecessary. The web server's quite capable enough on its own to load those assets. So that's the reason for that. Right, let's have a look at the chat because it's disappeared into the background. Sounds like a task for PHP FFI. Ooh, okay, foreign function includes. Was that reference to, sorry, that's about 10 minutes ago, Adrian, apologies. Is that more of a reference to what I was talking about before? With trying to get PHP to talk to Rust? Because your hunch there, or maybe your more experience on that is probably right, but what I can't fathom with FFI, and I haven't done much of it, so I don't really know, is how it knows about the process or thread or whatever that we're trying to communicate with. So my understanding is that FFI requires you to load a library. And then you've got sort of functions that you can call in the library. But, so if you built a standalone piece of Rust that, I think a classic example was Ryan Chandler had done a markdown. Where, in fact, let's have a look at that. Ryan Chandler? That's not Ryan Chandler. Markdown. PHP Rust. Yeah. Quickly, because I've read through this quite a bit. Maybe I just don't know enough, but the way that Ryan presents this feels like this is appropriate for the problem he's trying to solve, but that this might be the only way that it's done. That it can be done. So you're not tapping into an executable that is currently running. You're tapping into some function library that you can call, and it's going to do some work sort of in isolation, and that it's going to kind of boot up and then shut down. And the FFI is really just allowing you to do that from PHP. So I want to use some Rust or C or something else code that's been built elsewhere from my PHP, and I just want to write some PHP code to kind of interact with that, which is fine, but it feels like a completely different case. And again, I'm happy to be really wrong about it because I just don't know. I don't want to get into the weeds on this one because this is a slightly different problem to solve. But you're right. But I assume a Rust process can access another Rust process. I really don't know. It also comes down to how exactly is the whatever processes are going on in the web view and in the Rust application passing information between each other, because I feel like this is more fundamental than the how do we do it in PHP. I think once we figured out the mechanism that it's using, then we can decide how we implement that. I think FFI is just an implementation detail. Because it might be doing something like it's allocating some shared memory, and Rust is constantly watching that shared memory space for new messages, and it it just kind of picks one off the stack and just goes, and does its work with that. But it might be using something more complicated. I really don't know. And so just like really deeply understanding that feels super important. And it could be that we can pipe messages to it, or we have to use streams, like TCP, like opening a socket to the process or something like that, which we can all do. It's possible to do all of that from PHP, but it might be exactly FFI, and I'm just like scanning down this list of stuff here. It's like setting some memory to a certain value, and once we've been able to do that, then Rust picks it up just the same as it would from the web view. Anyway, that again is all a bit of an aside. I don't really want to focus on that. Sorry for diverting back to that, but apologies for not picking up your message, Adrian. I'm not going to go through this in detail. I might link. I'll link to this when I come to review this episode and add the notes. But this is very cool because it is, this like now we've created this add function in C, like C style, but it's going to go away and call some Rust thing. But all we have to do in PHP is treat it like it's a normal object method, and we can get it working. And that's very powerful on its own anyway, because Rust is super fast and performative. So if you've got some complex piece of work that you need to do that's like intense, and you need it to be more efficient, then the potential is you can build it in C or Rust and something, and then have PHP just call out to that using FFI, which is great. And that's what he shows here. Like this is after 50,000 iterations, lead common mark userland package written in PHP doesn't finish, and this comrack plus FFI takes less than a second. So that's infinitely faster in that case, and then in this case it's sort of two and a half I don't know, orders of magnitude faster. So it's 2.5, not times, orders of magnitude. Rust is really good for this kind of thing. Anyway, that's, as I said, aside. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to this problem. So even though I've said we want to split running PHP code and fetching and loading assets into two separate camps eventually, we shouldn't try and do that right from the beginning, because I think that might be trying to run before we can walk. But I think the first thing that we can do is try and figure out where and how these paths are getting mangled. So the first step there will be to imitate what's happening here in just the command line and see the output, right? So let's do that. I'm in the right place. PHP artisan native request, and I say, yeah, it is get blah. But before that, you can see we've got some environment variables being passed in. So this one's the one that matters to me. I think this is slightly wrong, actually. I'll not change it here. We'll do it on the command line first, as it is right now, and then we'll see what happens when we change it. So see what this generates, and see if it is this that's mangling the URLs. Yeah, it is. So it's Laravel is not handling that PHP protocol very well, right? And that could be for a couple of reasons. One is that this isn't really a proper URL for an app URL. This is like invalid. But Laravel's accepted that and it's just tried its best, which is unfortunate because it's not right. But if I change this, what happens this time? To something that looks like a valid URL at least. What's it done now? Okay, it's still mangled it. So what we've got to do now is dig into why it tries to render that PHP protocol like this. And we can do all of that without kind of booting up Rust and NativePHP applications. So I'm going to quit that so we're not faffing around with that. And we're just going to dive into how Laravel does this so that we can figure it out. And I'm going to make this a proper, like what I think is a proper URL, because I know that certainly from the Rust side, it doesn't like when it's just the protocol. So, and we've just seen it doesn't make a difference to the output with localhost or not localhost. So I prefer that we keep things consistent. And I'd say like that came up as a thing here. And that's why it's PHP localhost when we're creating the window, because when I did that with just PHP, even if it was just like 3 slashes or whatever, it wouldn't parse this as a valid URL. So Rust was complaining about it, and it wasn't. Either it wasn't compiling or it was crashing or something. It doesn't matter. So let's go into. Let's move this so that I can actually see when the chat changes. Let's dig into where this is happening. Let's have a look at one of these examples as a solid example. So the first one is, well, it's our Vite assets. So that JavaScript, I don't want to get digging into Vite, but there's going to be some underlying thing that it's using, right? Maybe we do just have to. Maybe it'll be easier if we. Let's get rid of all of this for a second. We'll play ground stuff for a moment in here, because this will let us toy around. Yeah, we already had one actually, wasn't it? That URL. So let's forget the Vite things for a second. Where's that URL? Okay, yeah. So the root helper. The root helper also did this mangling. So there's something in the root helper. So actually, before we fiddle around too much with anything else, let's just look at the root helper. Where is the root helper? Root helper is in helpers. That's going to be framework, I think. Yeah, that one. Oh, it's not there. Where's the root helper? ones have we got? Prompts? No. Ignition? No. It should be support helpers. Foundation helpers. Is it this one? This is probably the one. Yeah, okay, right. And so it's using the URL generator. So what's app URL? I think it is called URL generator. Maybe it's using the Symfony one under the hood. We'll get to a point where we find actually we can't fix this because it's deeply nested in multiple dependencies. Routing URL generator. Let's go the one that's in our demo app, because that's the one that's going to get copied into our Tauri place and get used. So somewhere deep within here, probably. Well, we've got probably a root function in here as well. This root. Yeah. So this should be the one that's being called by the root helper. Doesn't say that that's what it's using, but just to confirm this, hopefully we can root helper called me. Actually, I don't know if that will, because there might be another call to the root helper, but yeah, let's just see. Let's just do it. No harm, no foul. Whatever. It's actually happened earlier in the process. Model badge count. Oh no, it is at that point. Yeah. Fine. So we're in the right ballpark. This to root, I'm just following the path down. There's going to be some formatting, thing that does the work. Parameters, root URL to blah blah blah. Root URL to. Okay, so if it's a valid URL already, we'll not try to generate a new one, we'll simply return it. So that definitely doesn't seem to be happening because it's not including the PHP bit at the beginning. So let's just see at this point what the path looks like. Maybe it will get lucky and this won't be some early thing. Oh, nothing. So actually it's not calling that at all. Scary. What is it calling then? Oops, that's not the right one. To root. What's root URL? Root URL generator. This is a different deal. Okay, I didn't know it had got this as well. Root URL generator. Root URL generator. There. Fine. There's some funky things, and this is the to method that we're after for the root URL generator. Obviously, we still need to do stuff for other URLs as well, but let's assume for now we can start with this one place. Oh, and I've just done something really silly. Let's do domain. Null. Okay, let's have a root. Okay, this is slightly better because it's not just a string. It is a more complex dump of everything. It's a root. That's what we'd expect it to be, I guess. URI is welcome, blah, blah, blah. Now, can we see any mention of... In fact, you know, I'm just thinking now, is there something weird within PHP where it also looks for this PHP protocol? Are we going to run foul of that? Don't know. Let's just find in PHP. Well, yeah, it's come through the app URL. And it's in the start. That's sad. It's not anywhere else in that object. So let's go deeper. What's URI? Query string, blah, blah, blah. Some mention to it being absolute. I think we have to force that. I don't know, maybe we don't, maybe we need to just say, when you see PHP, don't mangle it. Let's see. Okay, so there's if not absolute, replace anything that looks like // Right, it's just going to do once, so the first one, preg replace is just one, isn't it? It's not preg replace all. So it's just going to be doing the first instance of a / that it finds, or well, I can't really interpret that one, but I feel like this is definitely the place where it's starting to mangle some things, and then get base URL and replace the base in the URI. So we could do a dump here, of URI, a dump here of URI after it's changed, a dump here, and we'll take base as well, in fact, just here, and we'll die here because, yeah. See. Ah, that's wonderful. Why is it not stopped? Saying it's not absolute somehow? I wonder how many dumps we'll get now. None. Oh, true. Wait, does that mean I get a bunch of dumps at the top of this one? No, I didn't. So when it's it doesn't make any sense. Why absolute is true? Wait, did we root to? Oh no, it's not true. Root absolute. Yeah. Okay. So absolute is defaulted to true when we use the root helper. That's kind of okay, and it's good. It means that bit of mangling that's happening is elsewhere. So let's see what URI looks like at that point. Let's clear that up. Right, it's already mangled before we get to this. So it must be within this URL format potentially. Place root domain. Maybe it's that root parameters thing. This is all in the root URL generator and not anywhere else. This is all kind of a bit strange. Get root scheme, that's the protocol, right? And then this is, it's saying if it's HTTP only or HTTPS only, then force these. Otherwise, format the scheme. And yeah, this is kind of what I'd expect. So these are, and this is in the URL generator now. So we're in the right territory. Basically, because Laravel is a web framework, as we all know, it's expecting the schemes to be either HTTPS or HTTP. So if you've ever tried to do anything else with Laravel that's not one of those, then you might have bumped into this already. But that's interesting. Request get scheme. What does that do? What is the request? It's not that. A HTTP request. That makes sense. Oh, get scheme. Oh. It's Symfony request underneath. The request is this one. So this is where get scheme is, right? And this is where the problem is for us, because it is as deeply nested as I thought. It's not just at the Laravel level, it's coming from Symfony. So Symfony is deciding whether it should be HTTP or HTTPS, and basically because we've got no other information, because it's just PHP : / it's dumping it as HTTP, which is not fun. That's not what I want. Basically, we need to kind of get in the middle of that process with our own implementation somehow, and say, when you're getting the scheme, just return the one that you're given, rather than trying to change it. It's kind of a high level view on it. Where do we call this? It is just there. So maybe this format scheme function, URL generator. Can we swap out the URL generator? Laravel. Swap. We can, because it's in the container. Swap out URL generator. What am I thinking? I don't even need to ask this question. 8 years ago. Well, that's daft. This is exactly what we want to do. We want to override the URL generator, so that's what we're going to do. Cool, okay. And we want to do most of this stuff, but when we say format scheme, don't know. Let's see. Let's just be really brutish about it. I am going to put this in NativePHP Tauri for now. Probably needs to go somewhere else, but it can start life here. I can't even remember what our namespace is. Just native Tauri. Okay. native Tauri. We'll call it a URL. We'll call it a PHP URL generator. And extend the default URL generator. So use wherever this one is from. Illuminate routing. Illuminate routing URL generator. And we want that format scheme. No, it wasn't that one. That's the wrong. It was the wrong. No, it wasn't format scheme. It was get scheme. Oh, it was, yeah, the name of the method was format scheme. I was right, but I was not searching for it properly. So public function, and this is, I kind of don't know if I really want to do this long term. Like extending this class, I think maybe we'll have to do something else just to control it a little bit more. Hopefully this won't change too much though in the coming months and whatever, but we've got to be aware that this is likely to break if the underlying URL generator changes. Potentially. Like if the signature of this method changes, and then we might be forced to adopt the same signature, but that's probably not too bad actually. It's not a major issue. URL, what was it? Secure equals null, not URL. Secure equals null. So we don't need that, but let's just return PHP. I don't think this is going to be the end of it, honestly, because I think that this is going to still have an issue elsewhere, but we'll see. And then in the service provider, it's going to be really, again, brutish about it. We're going to swap this for, I prefer to do it this way. So I can do this. Oops. Use love. And we want our own PHP URL generator. Grab one of them, and we're going to call that PHP URL generator. Nice. Okay. So in theory, when this is happening, hopefully it's happening at an early enough point in time that we're going to do something. It's going to use it. Unexpected identifier in this file. There's nothing weird here. Excuse me? Well spotted, Adrian. That's fantastic. Still going to have errors. It's coming from somewhere else. So I should use a proper ID, shouldn't I? We'll get it into some other environment soon. Target is not instantiable while building. Whoa. I think that, I mean, I don't really know what that means. It's, something's off in the timing of stuff. The root collection interface is not instantiable. Yeah, I think it needs to be at a different moment. I think I've just stuck it in what was available in the service provider, and this isn't the right place, is it? Basically, this is happening too late. Like in theory, should be happening in register. Okay, this is getting messy because this is a SPACY package service provider, and that's added a layer of complexity here that I'm not familiar with. And the reason it's that is just because we've kind of duplicated the Electron one and just modified it to keep them similar. Let's see, package tools. Okay, you're registering configure. That's kind of interesting because that configure package, which is what we were using, does happen. Earlier. So actually, I guess what I could do here is just do parent register first or second. No, we'll do it second. I'm going to do our stuff first, and then we'll do that. Different errors. Oh no, it's back to, still doesn't like that. Okay, let's try and do that one first and see if it likes it then. I don't think it will. Basically, this is all just shifting the timing around, and that's still not having the effect that we want. Yeah, that package registered function call though only happens here within register. It's just a hook at the end of the register function, which in principle is exactly the same as what I'm doing here, right? Unless there's some special version of that already in here. No, it's just empty. It is just a hook. So it's not a timing thing. It's something else. Why? What's happening? It's not instantiable while building. Let's have a look at this container. Illuminate container. That's a good point. Where can I do that? Let's swap that route for just a normal basic route, shall we? So instead of it going to this counter class, we'll just do good ideas, fellas. Simplify. Okay. You're onto something, Essa. I don't know what it is, but you're onto something. It has not changed the outcome for some reason. So when we replace root parameters, when we do this format root, get root scheme, format root, is it something in here? It's still like a double mangling. Oh, yeah. It's root is null. Let's see, what did that actually put it out as? It is still HTTP. Hi, January, February. It's January. Welcome. Okay. I don't think it's this at the moment. I think you might be in the wrong place if you want to learn Java. We're not doing Java here, we're doing PHP. Thanks for joining. Is this my first spam bot? Have I got so popular that we've got spam now? Anyway, all the best. Have a great day. Let's see what is coming out of. It's just returning the cache scheme, so this shouldn't be running at all, right? This logic. Because of we've swapped it out. Our own, but it is running. So our supposedly swapped out URL generator is not executing at all. Yeah. Why? Why is that not being swapped? Try putting it right at the beginning again. No, still, it's definitely not a timing issue. This just is not working. I don't know if this will work here. Maybe it has to be this app and that's going to throw a fit. No, it did. But this is still the wrong one. So it's not allowing us to overwrite. Is bind not the right thing to be doing anymore? Maybe it used to work and now it doesn't. Because I think this was wherever that. Oh my gosh, where's that window? I don't know. Wherever it was that I was looking at that. Stack Overflow question. It's gone. It was using bind, but maybe we need to like rebind or something. Oh. Yeah, there's no such thing as a rebind. Let's have a look at the container. Let's go. Container. Bind. Extend, no. Oh, that's my door. I have to go and get the door. I'll be back. I'm back. What did I miss? Let's see if there's been any fun chat. Oh, there's lots of chat. Okay. Right. Why is this not loading generator? Why does bind not do what we want it to do? Because it it should actually, shouldn't it? This is the thing. Is it not? I can't just do it from a class name. If it's null, concrete equals abstract, yeah, that's just fine. If it's not a closure, okay, so it shouldn't be. It's probably because it's not. Shouldn't be a class name really. Probably needs to be an instance, right? recommended spot. The register spot is the place to do it, isn't it? It should be a callback. Actually, let's just do. This is going to receive that because that's what's always received, and it's going to. I don't know. What does the URL generator normally require? The root collection interface. That's the error, isn't it? It's kind of like, where are my roots? Give me the roots, damn it. And the requests and the things. Okay. Well. I don't know if these are resolved out of the. I mean, I'd expect that one to be resolved out of the container. That one, not so sure. This roots. I think I need to understand, Adrian, what you mean by the recommended spot, because my understanding is, however limited it might be by all sorts of factors, that the register method is the recommended spot. We're in a service provider. This service provider is being attached to the application already. I mean, we could move all of this logic that we've written to somewhere more direct. So I could put it in providers and just have it here. We can see that it's operating because we're getting errors. So it's not like this isn't running. And the way that all of the service providers are, it's like a two-pass thing, isn't it? You have your register that does some bindings, and then you have your boot, which lets you, after a load of things have been resolved, then you can do some final setup or whatever. So I think we're in the right place. This is not the right thing. Root service provider. This doesn't feel right to me. Is that not where I am? No. Why am I not in the right place? Routing service. In register. Register the URL generator. Okay, it's a singleton. This is maybe. Is the URL generator macroable? Yes. Do macros let us override? If it has a macro, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not going to let us override an existing method because magic call's not going to be called. Right, forget that. It was a just wild idea. Yeah, so the rebinding that we're talking about it's slightly different, isn't it? Because well, there's two things I think that are happening. One is we're actually trying to bind against the class name, which doesn't appear to be done anywhere. Incidentally, it just is using URL as a singleton. I don't know if it will double resolve that somehow. Yeah, that's where I've kind of headed as well. It's like maybe this just needs to be a thing, but ultimately, if I'm going to create this, I need to replicate some of this. At the very least, it feels like I need to replicate this one. And I don't, will singleton let me override? No, it's just binding again. Okay, so, and then it's shared, and that's what a singleton one is. And shared does what? Maybe shared doesn't matter. Compact shared. Okay, that gets... Go away. I would rebind and try the closure. Yeah, return app URL. So the app URL is only going to be the URL generator that's already previously bound before, if there is one. Extend is a different story, I think. Yeah, so that's basically saying, well, I don't even really understand extend. I don't think I've ever used it. What does extend do? It's like we're passing in the abstract into a closure, the closure that we define. That's it. So I think we can do that. I think we can extend the PHP class and register it ourselves. That's the whole point of it being in the container. Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, but I believe that we can get around it. We haven't found the specifics. I think it's essentially a version of this, right? We can do the same thing as this. So let's just borrow that logic, and in place of the URL generator, we'll have the PHP URL generator. Because then we know that it's going to operate in something of the same way. the bit that I'm not sure of here is this request rebinder, which I don't really know what that's up to, but yeah, that doesn't make sense. This, I should have dug that out first. Request rebinder is simple, so let's just rob it and we'll let it do its thing here. Okay. And this time it's a PHP URL generator. Cool, right, so fine. Let's see if it runs the rest of the application that way. And like in theory, I could just move this into here. I'm going to say this and bind custom URL generator. Well, this is going to be this one. Custom URL generator. Because we like the timing and everything is right. I don't need that. It should just be this. And the only thing that we've changed is really that, which is the kind of weirdness about this. But maybe I'll find a better way of doing it eventually. Look, we've made some progress. We've got PHP. Ta-da! But it's still got the funny little extra bit. So where's that coming from? The funny little extra bit, the funny little third leg that's hanging off the edge. That sticks that on here. Well, it's not quite that because it's that / welcome, not 2 slashes. But I've got a funny feeling that then some other formatter is stripping out the extra double slashes. So it's leaving like part of this in play. So, oh, that's not true because we've overridden the format scheme method. So it's not that method at all. It's some other format. There was a format something, format root. Yes, maybe it's here. No, it doesn't look like it. Maybe it's just somewhere else entirely. It just calls format root. So let's just see what it looks like when we get to here, because in theory this should just be PHP : // right, it is. So we're all right there, and then when we do format root, let's see what the scheme looks like in here. Scheme, still correct. Yeah, that's like the right place. And when we get to, let's do root, just to check what that is. Okay, so something about the cached routing thing, maybe? Is it the cached root? This cached root. And then, yeah, okay. And it's null in those, so it's definitely here where it's just getting that root, isn't it? That's the problem. the request route. The request route is the baddie. Get scheme and host. Yeah, so it's there's another area of logic that's kind of getting the scheme, and the scheme is wrong there because it's in a different place to the one that we're looking at. Yeah, okay, so this is the Symfony one under the hood. So we can format scheme at the kind of lower level of is it the lower level? It's not really, no. We can format the scheme at the higher level of the URL generator, which is what we've done, kind of overridden all of that. But because this is lower level and it's being used in more than one place, this is still tripping us up. Now, we can play the game of whack-a-mole with the URL generator and kind of go, well, anywhere you can do this, I can do it better. Or we can try and dig down deep into this somehow. Now, what that leads to is, instead of replacing the URL generator, which I think we'll still have to do anyway, because of all these references to HTTP and HTTPS, we may also need to replace the request handler, like this request class, so that we can override the getScheme method. Which in theory is also doable because we've just proven that we can do it with this. And the URL generator does also handle the request which comes from the container. So we've seen that in the request rebinder. So in theory, I don't know if it's done here. I doubt it's done here. There'll be another service provider which does the binding of Illuminate, support, whatever it is. Where is it? Not support, HTTP request. So whatever is doing that, it's not going to be that. This is a silly search because I know it's going to be everywhere. Yeah, that's a good idea as well, to just do replacement, but you know, that's it's an extra layer of processing. There's loads of edge cases where we might get it wrong. It feels right at this point in time to go straight to the kind of root cause of the problem and fix it at the base, and then get it right later on. We just know then that the typical ways that people are going to be creating URLs using Laravel are going to be correct for the state that we want them to be in. So this is the issue with this though. HTTP request, as you'd expect, is used everywhere. What's this? Foundation application. Oh, right, that's the alias registration. So it's saying for those class names, the alias is request. Ooh, fine. Tricky. That's not quite what I'm after. That's not its registration. I'm just looking at the file names here as I'm scrolling down to see if I see an obvious one, that is like a service provider. Yeah, foundation, that kind of makes some sense. There would be something in here. The HTTP factory, that's logical. But it doesn't seem to be the right one. That's just validation, signatures, exceptions. It's not. Could have been so close, but not really. Makes HTTP request. Oh, that's testing. You can override in the URL generator is set request. Yeah. So maybe we can somehow modify the request rather than create a whole new class. Potentially. Let's see. This get scheme thing doesn't help us, unfortunately. Maybe we can just do like override it at that point. I don't know. Yeah, so what if we did a new class, what we've then got to do is take all of the data from the object that we've already got and translate it over to that new object. It's like it's like a clone and extend at the same time, but you know, you can't do that, can you, in PHP? Like a clone and extend. Can you extend an object? Oh, I don't like invasion tricks. If you can find a link to it that you'll have to probably put the URL without it being copy paste, you know, split it up with spaces or something, but we can have a look. But maybe like there's the capture function, maybe we can just extend and we can just recapture. That feels like it's going to be a little bit slow, but so we're doing that work again. I don't know how many times this is done within the application. It all fundamentally comes back to this get scheme within the Symfony class, which is what we need to sidestep. Sidestep, override, whatever it is that we do. So we could, instead of I don't think that's going to work. You can't extend an object. It has to just be a class name. It's going to be, what's it going to be? If we do our own request thing here, when we rebinding onto the set request, like it wants us to do. I don't actually understand why it's doing that, but let's say we'll do custom request, and this is going to be a new class, extends whatever it is, request, HTTP request, isn't it? So let's duplicate that. Okay. And then well, I don't even know if I can do this. custom request capture, which according to capture in here, it's going to fill this instant. It's going to create from base. I don't know what create from base is. Where's that? It's creating an instance of static. Okay, fine. So it's going to give us an instance of our new custom class back. It's not really. Can I just do class? I don't know if I can do that. Class, and then we'll just do custom request. So this should be the instance, and then set request to the custom request. I mean, it's like on the fly. We'll tidy this up. Expected class. Yeah, you can't do that. So it's got to be new. There. Okay. And then that means here we could just do get, scheme. So function get scheme and return again PHP. Well, that didn't help. Ooh, that's not running anything. I mean, this is maybe too far nested down to even surface, but yeah. Okay, no, this isn't running yet. This isn't running when I'm thinking it's running. This is no good. We can't do this here. This is a callback that's being registered for when the request rebinds. Yes, that's making some sense now. This is only going to happen if the container is receiving a rebind for the request concrete instance, and we're not doing that. We need to rebind ourselves. So I do still need to find out when it's binding, but in principle this is all that we need to do. We just, I don't know when it's binding. I'll put this back together. Oh. We bind the request. It must be doing that capture as well, no? Does it, or does it do that in the kernel? Maybe even it doesn't do it in a, what's the name? What's it called? A provider. Maybe it does it somewhere more fundamental. Maybe it's in, well, that was a good place to start actually. Request capturing happens at the kernel, kind of boot up. App. Yes. So when the main kernel, which is the HTTP kernel, is handling. There's some point maybe in there that it's kind of passing the request object that we create off into. Well, this is silly. Why don't we just swap it out here? Oh no, I can't do that. No, I don't want to do that. That's going against the principle of not making too many changes to the application that we're working with. So we could, in theory, I could do that here, right? I could just go, some new class extends the request is there, so I can do that. And then instead of the default request capture, I can do some custom request capture. And now I've got my thing. This is probably going to explode, but still didn't work. What? That doesn't make sense to me. Is this the right place? Now I'm like, wait, what? That should have that should have exploded somehow. What? No, still not that. Let's just go to get scheme. Maybe it's ignored it because it doesn't follow the same signature. This needs to be public. See, well, I mean, I would have expected that to throw an error anyway, because it's going to be like, you've defined the method, but you haven't defined it in the same way. So something's not quite right with that. It's not doing this. Let's just exit before we get going. Yeah, this isn't the right file somehow. Why is this not the right file? Oh, well, because I'm being really stupid. We're not in the HTTP kernel at all. We're somewhere else entirely. This is the thing, because we're not in the HTTP context. We're actually in Artisan. So it's here. And this is maybe the weirdness about it, actually, and the point that allows us to jump into this process, because we're not loading this stuff at all. We're doing it ourselves in our own command. We're not relying on the framework, and I'm just being really stupid. It's here. So we can do this. Why didn't I remember that? Come on, brain. I mean, I did remember it. I remembered it just now, but it took all this time to get to this point. Stupid. Ah, that's frustrating. Anyway, so instead of this request capture, we can do custom request class capture. Wow. And this is the one that's going to work. Oh no, we've got two of them. Okay, so it doesn't like when it's. Oh dear. It doesn't like PHP, basically. Okay, so we need to dig a little bit deeper. This is good. How long's it been now? When did we start? It's been a couple of hours. We've been going for a couple of hours almost. So I feel like it might be time to pause String replaced. I agree. That might be the right way ultimately. No, it won't be the right way ultimately. Sorry, I don't agree with that. But it's a good, quick and dirty proof of concept. But yeah, I don't want to go down that path. I do want to figure this out because I'm going to have to figure this out at some point. We just know that needs to be solved. So somewhere in all of this formatting logic in the URL generator, it's still giving me, this is what I kind of do want to dive into what's happening here. Where did we get to? This, I do need to wrap this up, honestly, but I'm going to go just try figure out why. Yeah, so it's the root method that's definitely at fault. And that is in, presumably, it's in root? No, it's not in that one. It must be in the... Goodness me, I've got too many files open now. Where's the other request? Did I close it? Illuminate. HCP request. No, root. So, okay, so get scheme and host, which we know is then the foundation. Maybe it's that one? That's where it's adding that funny little string. Oh, maybe get scheme should just be PHP, not HTTP. What does... come on, I'm just being really dumb. Yeah, that shouldn't be... Where's my command? I shouldn't be returning that extra bit of stuff. I should be just returning PHP, and this might fix it all. No, still adds a little bit for some reason. Okay, maybe the other one that I've got in my URL generator is also wrong because I've got it there. Format scheme on the normal generator does what? Oh no, I closed it. URL generator. Where's it gone? It's not that one. Yeah, okay. That's weird because this one does seem to return it with the extra gubbins. Yeah, this is a good point, actually. People will still use just a string over named roots. So I'm not doing named roots only. We're doing the URL generator, which is used by everything in the framework, right? So we definitely need to do it this way for that. And then if somebody goes in and tries to do a string, like, and they're hand rolling absolute URLs, then first of all, if it's an absolute URL and they have intentionally done that, it will most likely be to some other external URL, and that's a different problem because then it's like, how do you want to handle that from within your application? Do you want it to open like a different browser window, like the default browser that the person's using on your user is using on their machine? there's a bunch of things that should maybe happen by default, whatever, in that scenario. But there's like some thinking that's separate there. It's like they're trying to open a real URL to a real web page that's not this application. And then there are people who do it trying to think of it in the context of the current application, thinking, oh yeah, no, I know that I can do a full absolute URL to this page in my application because I know what the URL should be for that. And that's just wrong. Like, you shouldn't do that. Because if you're using a framework like Laravel to build your application, then you should be using the URL helper to build, like, at some level, whether it's named routes or the action function or something. So I would override minimal places to force HTTPS absolute and replace HTTPS base with PHP. Yeah, this is kind of the point that I'm getting to though, Adrian. The problem that introduces is that we don't know when somebody puts string HTTP or HTTPS, whether they mean some external site or thing, or is part of this application. And so the point that I'm making is that we have to only go through the framework's routing stuff. And if somebody's failing to make it work because they're not going through the framework for something that should go through the framework, then we basically force them to go through the framework, and then it will get it right. And they will be doing it better. So like if we tried to do string swapping at the last layer of the application before it comes out into Rust, we'll mangle a whole bunch of things that weren't ever meant to be mangled. And it just feels like then we'll be going down the circle of, or the spiral of fixing issues that aren't really issues with all sorts of weird exceptions. And if we just went to the core of the problem and fixed it at the core and get people to use it the right way, then it would be okay. So yeah, I do appreciate the sentiment of trying to do it quickly with just string swapping, but I feel like I want to get this piece really right. Yeah. So anyway, the problem that this sort of presenting is I don't feel like it's going to go for too long once we've figured it out, but it just needs some tinkering and playing, and I don't think I've got the time at the moment to tinker and play. Like, that's weird as well that just worked the exact same way. Still, right, whatever. This is strange. Where did I put all of my little hooks into dump? Are they in here? Are they in the other one? I don't know, I've left a whole bunch of things, haven't I, in different places. Composer. What's the, can't remember. Status. Yeah, okay. So taking the full base app URL. That might be a better approach overall, I'll admit, because there's at least a good chance that we can even control some of that. It still leaves the door open to people doing things in weird and wonderful ways, which we can't always mitigate. So there's going to be things that are introducing not in PHP, for example, request to a HTTP endpoint that should be part of the app, but it's just, you know, making an assumption. Yeah, that's also part of it, is we're putting extra burden on people. I mean, there is going to be a point where you just go, okay, we have to do it this way. Or rather, you know, you as the app developer, you have to do it this way in order for this to work. I think it's just how much of that becomes a burden to, you know, that's too far outside of the norm. And the thing is, one aspect of it that I was originally thinking was, oh, you know, what would be quite cool is if you build an app, a web app, in Laravel, and then you just add native PHP to it, like it can work in both places. And I don't think that that's even right. You know, as time's gone on and I've thought about that more, I kind of realised that no, probably that's not what's going to happen. I think what will have to happen is that you have your a Laravel application that becomes a native application, and you have a if you've got this, even a similar application as a web application, it's going to be a different repository or code base, or whatever, and you just find ways to share code between the two if you need to. So we can definitely attack the you do it this way for your native PHP application problem, specifically for people who are in that context, without worrying about it crossing over into the web context. But I'm still just, yeah, maybe it's like a good challenge to dig into some of this anyway for me. Like I'm actually enjoying it, maybe enjoying it a bit too much because we're not making progress, but no, I appreciate your input and your help trying to get it to a better place. So thanks for your support. I'll toy around with that idea as well, see if we can just do some last minute swapping out. But it does, my only other concern with that still is that it introduces a little bit of overhead. And it might not be that much really, ultimately, but it is some overhead nonetheless. And a lot of the feedback that I've seen, I'll say, like, people are concerned with performance in this arena of desktop applications for good reasons. I think some of it's a little bit overblown because we're not, you know, I don't think PHP is poor in performance by any stretch, and especially with a Tauri application, you know, you're talking about something that's going to be super, super fast for the most part. So I don't think we'll be too worried about that, but yeah, that little bit of overhead still somewhere. Somebody's going to complain about it. Anyway, I am going to wrap it up. Let's pause, stop on this, and I'll try and make some progress in between times. But we'll try and pick it up again next week. So if you're around and you want to have a go at this again next time, then yeah, let's do that. I'll think about your final comment, Adrian. Thanks. Well, I won't talk about it now because I said I'm going to leave. So have a good weekend, and yeah, thanks for all of your input. It was great to have you with me again, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.